Welcome to the One Take Conversations with Global Mobility Leaders. Today, I have the privilege of speaking with Anindita Chowdhury, Principal and Managing Attorney at USILAW, an expert in immigration law, and a passionate advocate for the benefits of immigration. Anindita, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Anupam.
Before we get started, Anindita, for the benefit of our members, who may not have had the opportunity to meet with USILAW before or would you please give us a 60-second description of USILAW and your own focus at the firm?
Sure, Anupam. Thank you so much. USILAW, we are a global immigration law firm based out of the nation's capital in the Washington, D.C. area. We view immigration as an investment. We view immigration or the talent to be the single largest asset of any particular company. That would be a good way to summarize what we do.
No, that's fantastic. And do you, just from a sort of a geographical operational perspective, do you focus on specific geographies or, you sort of all things to everyone?
We pretty much focus on U.S. immigration, and we do have additional focus on Canada and India.
Okay, fantastic. Well, then in that case, let's talk about U.S. immigration. The U.S. has seen some significant shifts in immigration policy and processes, particularly with the last two administrations. You layer on top of that the macroeconomic roller coaster that we've been on in the last couple of years. And now we have even more uncertainty ahead with another election coming up next year. So with all of that, how are you seeing this play out in terms of immigration trends, challenges, and opportunities? And what are you advising your clients to do or not to do given this landscape?
You put it very correctly. The global landscape, and starting with our home base, the US base, is so uncertain because we both don't know, and to the largest scene, nobody knows what 2024 will bring. And that increases the responsibility that we all have in the global mobility space, no matter what hats we wear, whether it is the law firms, whether it is the HR, whether it is the immigration team, doesn't make a difference. To work collaboratively to, number one, preserve the talent pool that we have, because this is the primary focus that every company should have. At USILAW, I say this, with a little bit of a cringe. I hate calling, the employers a client because honestly, we feel it's a partnership. All our partners, our responsibility or our commitment is a duty of care, because this talent, and you've worn many hats, Anupam, over your tenure, I'm sure you will agree with me that, the talent is the single most asset of any company, and given what has been happening, COVID, even before COVID, and definitely now, there's such a shortage of it. And therefore, the responsibility increases exponentially of how we treat that talent and how we take care of that talent. That being said, how do we, in our field, future-proof, this particular talent? And if I'm talking about immigration, specifically, any capable partner should be able to plan for you. And that's what you're trusting the partnership to do from the moment the case is entrusted to what will happen to this case in 3 years, what will happen to the case in 6 years, 12 years. As you know, some companies, it might actually take 12 years to get a green card. So you should be able to visualize every pitfall of what could come down the pipe. Therefore, because the way we look at it is immigration, like I mentioned to you, is an investment. So from that perspective, how do we strategize together to take care of this end all or be all? Kind of is the goal or the viewpoint that we look at it at USILAW.
Got it. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, talent is really the most valuable asset that any company has. I mean, fundamentally believe that for a long time, both as a business owner and as an employee myself. So even with that, we've seen with the economic up and downs, as I said, some industries, you're exactly right, there's a massive shortage of talent, and so they're scrambling. But certain other industries, for example, let's take the technology industry as an example. That saw a tremendous amount of growth and really rapid hiring over the first couple of years, including shortly after the pandemic. And then starting fall of last year, thereabouts, late last year, essentially coming into this year, we saw massive layoffs and such. And many, the technology industry is one of the largest employers of immigrants. And so, what did you see as some of the, just really quickly, what did you see as some of the struggles that companies had? And of course, employees were massively negatively impacted, but what struggles did companies have, and how did you see them sort of work through it, the better ones anyways, work through it and successfully come out on the other side, assuming we are on the other side?
Absolutely. I'll speak from our personal experience. I'll tell you, we are very privileged to, as you correctly pointed out, business immigration in the US. Um, it's pretty much, I think, a good 60 to 70% of business immigration is IT. It pretty much takes care of all the engineers in IT. And we are very privileged to represent at least three or four very large companies in that tech space. In March or April of 2020, like peak, like just when COVID just blew up, we were approached by our largest account, and they entrusted us with this amendment project, which had 1,500 cases that we were given. And essentially, what was happening, as you remember, the retail sector, the financial sector were crashing, and they had this talent that had to be repurposed into our the pharmacy and the pharmaceutical and
Healthcare.
the other the pharmaceutical and the other sectors where they had talent. And essentially, we were given an SLA of 2 weeks and to deliver, and a time frame of 2 months. And at that point, that current government, was reputed to, have 90% RFEs, 30% denials. And we delivered a 98.4% approval rate within 2 weeks. And essentially, the deliverables, and that is what we consider to be a partnership. That is what, you're looking for in the relationship that you have with your law firm.
What gave you that level of success? What would you say your partners did?
It would be a combination of the work product.
Hmm.
It would be the combination of strategy.
Hmm.
It would be the combination of how you would work together to, at that point, we weren't even allowed to, have more than 10 people per Maryland law in the office. So you pivot.
Hmm.
That's where I was telling you that, it's collaboratively how you come up with different strategies you work with. For example, if you now bring it to today's day and age, if you have a company that is now laying off people, how do you go about doing that? Some of the large companies who have bases abroad, they have the option of rotating talent. So that could be one of the ways to look at it, where they preserve the talent. Even with your experience, terminating somebody, when you get to that stage, it is such a difficult decision because you've invested so much into the talent. So what do you go through before you make that decision? So, and there, as USILAW as partners, you have to evaluate, or we offer to evaluate with the different companies, different options before you get to that very end. Because when it comes to termination, it's not just terminating the employee, it's terminating if there could be a spouse, if there could be a child. It's just not saying, oh, this is not working out, here's your return transportation ticket, go back to the country you came from.
Hmm.
So it's very complicated. So it's another collaborative, partnership where we work together to figure out what would be the best solution for this particular project, what would be the best solution for this particular company or this particular family in that instance.
That's amazing. I didn't keep count of it, but you clearly collaboration is really important for you. And when you talk about collaboration, you're referring to between USILAW and your client,
Mm-hmm.
typically. Okay, that's fantastic. I mean, yeah, I agree with you that that's when you'll end up with best strategies because you're sort of putting law and what you're seeing in the marketplace or what you're seeing in the government process together with business objectives and imperatives. Fantastic. Let's switch gears maybe for a second. You mentioned you're seeing growth in Canada and India as well in your own business. So let's maybe switch to India immigration really quickly and maybe spend a minute or two there. India's been through an interesting journey of its own. It's seeing significant economic growth, appears to be getting talked about a lot these days. Um, and it too is interestingly heading into an election next year. So, what are you seeing as trends, as challenges, and opportunities playing out in the Indian market? And how are you advising, your clients or partners, as you refer to them, to approach those?
As far as the Indian market is concerned, Anupam, I'm cautiously optimistic. The reason being, as you know, you have been to the APAC WRC summit and the HSBC, had also said that India has become now the highest or the largest intaker for VC capital. There's a lot of expectation of growth as far as economic growth is concerned. There's exactly as you correctly pointed out. There's election coming up with the Modi government next year. The expectation is that the government will continue. So the expectation is a lot of the economic rules and processes and policies will continue. But India is a different beast. I mean, it's just not economic policies. When you are relocating to India or you're opening up branches in India, as you know, it's a different culture, it's a different orientation, it's a different society, it's a different adjustment. So, the person or the company, sorry, has to have like a different Indian, cultural orientation policy, So the experienced partner that you need to partner with in India has to have very India-centric knowledge or experience of doing business, which is a whole different way of experience in and of itself. As far as the other aspect I want to touch base on is what we've started noticing slightly. I don't think I would agree that we are in a recession yet in the US, but we have started noticing there is a slight return of talent from the IT layoffs that has gradually started happening. So there is some of that we've started noticing in the last, I would say, 4 to 6 months. So there is some of that that's already happening on the ground in India. But in addition to
Sorry,
that,
sorry to interrupt, but are you seeing layoffs happening in India? Or are you seeing return of talent from
return of
other
talent from here to India. So a lot of that
Fascinating.
talent is now readily available on the ground. And in addition to that, I guess with the VC funding and everything, there is a lot of business and investments that are going into India. So I guess a combination of that is making it more ripe of a talent pool that's available on the ground. So it remains to be seen with a combination of the new government, based on what elections bring about in 2024, if the current government's policies continue, which is kind of foreseeable, how all of that will gel and will, maybe allow business the status quo, as it is today.
Well, fantastic. Lots of interesting things. This is certainly a very dynamic space, obviously, and I am completely confident that we could spend hours talking about not only these topics but many others in the immigration context. But I think as we wrap up, and thank you for taking the time and being generous with your insights. But as we wrap up, one last question: are you planning on being in Boston for GWS? Are you planning on
Yes.
bringing anyone with you?
next in a week and a half. Yes, absolutely. Look forward to seeing you too. Yes.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love hearing that. So will it be just you, or are you bringing folks with you?
No, we are having a team. We are a champion sponsor at GWC. We'll be at booth 825, and we'll have our director, Nafis, going to be there, our principal, Nan Park, and then we'll have two professionals from our BDM team, Jason and Anthony, joining me also.
Oh, that's brilliant. Wonderful. Exactly what I love to hear. In that case, I encourage obviously folks that may have additional questions or want to dig into any of the topics we've talked about to come find you or your colleagues while we're in Boston. But definitely look forward to seeing you there. And I'll just say see all of you in Boston in
And look
a
forward.
very short
Thank
time.
you for this opportunity and look forward to your leadership, Anupam. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks very much.